I discussed that with the ambassadors in the PSC, of the European Union, and several of them announced that they are proceeding with this identification of the people who could come back immediately, and at least for these people this would be a solution. It would demonstrate also, I think, to the Iraqi government that there is some movement, that the process is going on. But obviously this is not a solution for all the people in the camp. So what else can the European Union do? Except obviously continue to follow very closely what is going on, what I am doing. I think we have also to remain in permanent contact with those who are the actors. The UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, is following personally this issue, and he wants the European Union to be on his side, because this is a very complicated situation for him also to deal with. We would like very much also to keep the contact with the government of Iraq at the highest possible level. We are engaging with the government of Iraq in a dialogue. We are negotiating, we are about to conclude a partnership agreement.
Thank you very much, Ambassador De Ruyt. I think it's only fair we ask the Iraqi Embassy and Minister Councillor Kladocha to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members, Ambassador Jean De Ruyt. I would like to start by conveying the apologies of His Excellency, the Ambassador of Iraq, for not being able to attend this meeting due to some official tasks outside Belgium. Please allow me also to welcome His Excellency, Ambassador Jean De Ruyt, for attending this important meeting. We are confident that the diplomatic experience and the wisdom of Ambassador De Ruyt will contribute to the success of his mission in evacuating Camp Ashraf. The date designated by the government of Iraq to close the camp by the end of this year is a deadline that has to be honored. His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iraq, has met Lady Ashton in New York on the margins of the meetings of the United Nations General Assembly on September 23rd. He handed 3 letters tackling this matter over to her within the past 2 months. These letters reaffirm the decision of the Iraqi government to close the camp by the end of this year, 2011. The organization has already been classified by the international community as a terrorist organization. The presence of this organization is banned under the Iraqi constitution that prohibits the presence of any terrorist entity on Iraqi territories. It's in Article 7 in our constitution. The organization cannot be considered as a liberation movement, as the relevant international law rules are not applicable in this case. The presence of this organization in Iraq threatens the internal security of Iraq and the security of neighboring countries, and gives an excuse to neighboring countries to interfere in the internal affairs of Iraq. Iraq, as a democratic and peaceful country, seeks to build peaceful relations with the neighboring countries and not to interfere in internal affairs, and preserve regional and international peace and security. Iraq also rejects the existence of terrorist organizations on its territories before. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With all due respect, we are 27 member states. We have one of the highest gross national incomes of the world. We are a trading partner in this entire world, and developing nations, including Iraq, are queuing up to have trade agreements with us, whether it's at the government level or whether it's company-to-company contacts. And that process is going on in Iraq as well. Furthermore, we're the biggest donor of development aid in Iraq. And then, being such a giant when it comes to our weight in the world. Yes, economically. Why do we continue to be so incredibly modest when it comes to using that economic power and putting it into political influence? But what unites this House, and I'm looking at the Embassy of Iraq as well, what unites this House is that we have always stood up when human rights are at stake and when we are facing a humanitarian crisis. And this is what we are facing. So I'm not talking about the politics of the past. I'm talking about the humanitarian situation that we are basically facing in 4 or 5 weeks. And that is that we should all at least be working towards extending this deadline. And extending this deadline is going to be, I'm looking around at my colleagues here, but is going to be the line where we can all be united behind as a European Parliament. The UN has indicated that they want to go through with this process and do it responsibly. Well, if we want to do it responsibly and if we want as an EU to contribute to that, at least give us time, because time is what is needed. So what I would like to know from the advisor, so from our Foreign Action Service, is the call for extending the deadline going to be the main priority of the EU in the next weeks to come, so that we actually stand a chance of resolving this issue in a responsible way and not heading straight into a crisis? In my view, I think in our view, this should be the line of the European Union in times to come, and I think we should try to convince our respective groups to have an emergency debate on this issue in the December session.
Sicuramente quello di chiedere con forza, attraverso anche l'alta rappresentante, la Catherine Ashton, al governo iracheno, d'intesa con gli Stati membri, un rinvio di questa chiusura mi sembra la prima precondizione, in nome di ragioni sia umanitarie che di possibilità di impegno anche degli Stati membri ad ospitare quelle persone che sono che per volontà o per già non solo per nazionalità ma anche per possibilità e contatti possono essere ospitate anche nei nostri paesi. Grazie.
Actually, it was very scaring to hear what the representatives of the Iraqi embassy was saying. I mean, with no guarantees that the people can maintain their communication equipment. Why is this important? In 2009, we saw the massacre, and in the beginning we heard a lot of rumors. The people have committed suicide. They had hit themselves. Only when we got the pictures, when we got the movies from mobile phones and things like that, we could see what the truth was. That this was a massacre on unarmed and defenseless men and women. So to taking away their equipment to document their situation is exactly the same as saying preparing in silence such massacre. And therefore it was actually very, very scary to hear this information from the Iraqi embassy. Unfortunately, it shows what is in the pipeline if a solution is not found.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. De Ruyt, for your work and your efforts that we appreciate very much. Let's go directly to facts, because everything that has been said was quite clear, and I, of course, support absolutely the interventions of our chair, Struan Stevenson, and also our vice chair, Mrs. De Lange, and also of Mrs. Costa. So I fully support this. I'm not going to repeat what they said so clearly and so precisely. The facts, Ambassador, the facts is that 2,500 men and 1,000 women, disarmed and defenseless, are in a refugee camp in Iraq, and they are under the serious and immediate threat of being massacred and deported to a regime that is very well known by its brutality and absolute contempt of human rights. We, as European Union, we have, of course, moral authority, but its moral authority is not very useful with people that have no morals, Mr. Ambassador. And that they have no morals, it is clear, because we have just heard the Iraqi embassy speaking about human rights when they are torturing psychologically these people, they are denying them medical assistance, and they have killed, assassinated already 46 of them, shooting to defenseless people. So I think this is eloquent enough to understand the level of cynicism the Iraqi government in this question. There is nothing to expect from this government, and of course moral authority at this level of the problem is just a joke, Mr. Ambassador. So what can we do? The first thing we must do is to use our power of pressure, which is very high, as Mrs. De Lange explained very well. Are we decided and committed to use these powers we have or not? That's the first question you must answer, or if not you, the High Representative should answer. The second thing is, what can we do practically? I think I was clear enough. Another thing, the talks and contacts with United Nations and their different bodies in order to solve the problem of the rest of the people, this of course will need more time. And the deadline is a way to say they don't want, the Iraqi government does not want a solution. So please, let's not talk about the deadline as it was something legally admissible. So the deadline is a way to say they don't want a solution. By the way, the process of interviewing the people to recognize them the status of refugee is being blocked by the Iraqi government. So this is a contradiction in its own terms, Ambassador, that you External Service, should also face. The problem is crystal clear. The things we can do, and at the speed we must do them, is also clear. And then I want to say you a last thing, Ambassador. This is a parliament. This parliament has been working on that problem for years. On the specific problem of Camp Ashraf and their threat, the threat on Camp Ashraf after the Americans transferred their security to the Iraqi government, we have been working now for more than 1 year. It took us 9 months to make Mrs. Ashton to move. 9 months. And she only moved. She only reacted after the last attack where dozens of people were assassinated. So this is not a record in terms of speed and capacity to react in front of events. Now, Ambassador, this Parliament has the right and the duty to control the Commission, and Lady Ashton is Vice President of the Commission. So I tell you something. If from this moment on we don't perceive clearly that the External Service and her maximum responsible, who is Lady Ashton, do not act with determination, will and commitment that we expect from such a grave case, do not have a doubt that Parliament will exercise its rights of control until its maximum limits, because we have warned too long, we have explained too long what it will come, what will happen, and what must be done. So our patience is exhausted. We have 5 weeks, the clock is ticking, and really, Ambassador, after thanking you again for your efforts that we really appreciate, please let's do something effective now. Thank you.
And as the Ambassador has just said, the process of registering all of these people as refugees, but we cannot possibly do that given the obstacles that have been placed in our path without the full cooperation of the Iraqi authorities and without the time and space in which we can conduct that work. So if this deadline is not rescinded, And if you go ahead on the path that you have chosen, you will be doing it in absolute defiance of what we are asking for. And let's be clear about that. And there will be a price to pay for that.